So last talk of the session is by Janani Sundaresan at Rutgers, and she'll talk about online vector scheduling.
Okay, so first of all, thanks for sticking around. It's been a long 2 days. But yeah, I really appreciate this. Sorry, what is it? Oh, I have to go back. Okay, got it. Okay. So we've seen a lot of online vector scheduling till now. This is going to be slightly different in two contexts, right? So I'm not going to define the problem too much. I'm just going to talk about the differences till what we've seen till now. Okay. So first of all, we have M machines and all our machines are identical, right? So till now, all the settings we've seen, the machines have been different. So here, these machines are identical. And our job still has d dimensions, right? But this d dimension is just a virtue of the job. The job's load is going to be in d dimensions. Okay? And one more difference is that the job can be inserted or deleted, right? So if we're going to have n insertions or deletions in total. And again, we don't know what n is. It's just at some instant, a job is going to come in and it's going to say, I want to be inserted, or if the job is already around, it wants to be deleted, right? So this is the setting we're looking at. Okay, and the goal again is to minimize the L infinity norm or the make span. Okay, so let's just run through a quick example because the setting is slightly different than what we've seen till now. Okay, so I'm just going to run this greedily minimize the make span and see what happens. Right? So I'm only going to consider two machines and two dimensions, and I'm just going to try and insert this job, right? Okay, and it goes somewhere, it doesn't matter. And the next job goes into the next machine, and this job goes into some other machine, and let's just keep doing this, right? Okay. So if I greedily just try to minimize the make span, this is what happens. Okay. And it's not hard to see that you can definitely do better in this setting, because there is another assignment with the make span is just 7, but then when we run the greedy algorithm, the make span was 11, right? Okay. And as we said, deletions can happen here. So let's start with this good assignment that we have, right? And let's say we get a request to delete this job 7.7, right? So what's going to happen here? You're just going to be left with an empty machine, and all the jobs are concentrated on this one machine, right? So this forces us to definitely need recourse in this setting because we have deletions. Okay. And I mean, I'm not going to explain what recourse is because you just saw it, right? Okay. So the secondary goal is going to be, we don't want to actually change these assignments too much. We want to minimize the make span while keeping the recourse to be less. Okay. And let's look at the results in this setting. So in the insertion only model, in the oblivious adversary setting, I think this is a paper of Demalya, so he's right here. And we get a tight competitive ratio of log D over log D. And again, just to reiterate, D is the number of dimensions here. And here we don't actually use any recourse. And with the adaptive adversary, we're able to match this. We again get a competitive ratio of log D over log D. And there's no reassignment of these jobs, right? And this is our result in the fully dynamic setting with deletions. We're able to match this competitive ratio and still get a log D over log D bound with just a constant number of reassignments of these jobs. Okay. And we're also able to get a log D competitive ratio when that adversary is adaptive, right? But our recourse is bad. Okay, it's not good. Okay, it's some D times log n factor. So it's not important. And today we're only going to be looking at this fully dynamic oblivious algorithm. Is that okay? So any questions in the setting till now? Okay, so let's keep going. I'm just going to assume for simplicity that all these jobs are powers of 2, and I'm just going to partition these classes based on what the highest power is and all of that. And this is pretty standard, you know, when you look at these algorithms. And we're only going to look at one class. Okay. But one thing I want to emphasize here is these lower bounds, trivial lower bounds on what the optimal make span can be. It definitely has to be at least higher than the maximum average load over these dimensions, right? So here K is always going to mean some dimension. And it's also going to be higher than the maximum load over all the jobs, over all the dimensions. Right. So this is what we're going to use to prove our competitive ratio guarantees. Okay. So let's look at the insertion only algorithm. Right? So this is not our result. This is already proven in 2019. And we're going to look at this algorithm because we're building on this for our model. Okay. So we're going to assume that two copies of the machines exist when they actually don't, we're just going to assume they do and treat it as such, right? So we're going to call them the random copy and the greedy copy, right? Okay, so there are M machines in the random copy, and again, M machines in the greedy copy. These are all identical machines, and we'll have some assignment already in the random and greedy side. Okay, so when a job comes in, what are we going to do? We're going to set some threshold in each dimension. Okay? And based on this threshold, we're going to decide where we're going to assign this job. So this threshold is going to depend on the combinatorial ratio that you want. And as we said, it's going to be log D over log D. Okay. And I just want to show you what this AL and ML means. This is the notation we're going to be using. AL is going to be the average load in dimension K till job J. And ML is going to be maximum load overall K and J. So this is what we're going to use in our threshold as well. Okay, so yeah, that will be our threshold. And the combinatorial ratio is going to be log D over log D. And when a job comes in, we're going to just pick a random machine, M of J, let's call it that. And we're going to check if you add this job to M of J, whether the threshold is going to be violated or not. Right? If the threshold is not violated, then I'm just going to add it to the random machine. And if it is violated, you're going to actually move it to the greedy side. So on job J, the threshold wasn't violated, so you're staying in M of J. And on some other job J prime, if you assign it to random machine 1, if the threshold was violated, you're moving into the greedy side. Okay? So let's think about this algorithm for a bit. So what's happening? It kind of tells us that just random assignments is not enough, right? Just random assignments is not going to give us a good combinatorial ratio, right? So we're doing something a little bit cleverer. So if you just try to do some random assignments, but then let's say if this one machine is getting overloaded too much, then any job which is getting assigned to this one machine, you just stop and then you take care of it some other way, right? So that's essentially what's happening. Is that okay? Any questions? Sorry, yes, the random and greedy are two disjoint set of jobs. Okay, so let's keep going. How are we going to take care of the jobs in greedy, right? We just said we're just going to push it to greedy to take care of it later. So how we're actually going to do this is we're going to use this one-dimensional algorithm which already exists long back, right? So because the emissions are identical, we're able to get constant combinatorial ratio with the fully dynamic model when the number of dimensions is just 1. And the recourse here is also just order of 1. But then if we use this directly, we're going to get an order of D ratio, right? Because we have D dimensions. Okay. We'll see how we take care of this. Right. So this is just an analysis sketch of the insertion only algorithm. Right? We'll talk about it in more detail once we build up on it for deletions. Okay. So for the random machines, we're already setting the threshold so that nothing is violated. And any job is going to be sent to the greedy set with very low probability. It's just going to be 1 over D. And because of this, only a few jobs are sent to greedy to begin with. So because of that, we don't violate the threshold or in the greedy set as well. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's keep going. How do we actually change this for deletions, right? Or what are the issues we run into? And then we'll see how to fix it. Okay. So first of all, in the insertion only model, what's happening is that this threshold is always going to be increasing, right? Because the average load can only increase because jobs are only inserted and this maximum load cannot decrease either, right? So in the deletion model, this threshold can actually decrease, which means you may want to reassign jobs from machines to each other inside the random set itself, right? Okay, so one more thing is, how do we actually update these thresholds? Because as we said, these thresholds are going to be decreasing because the make span itself is decreasing, right? So we have to take care of these make span and threshold also. And if you want to reassign jobs, we also have to choose which jobs to reassign and how to reassign them. Okay, so we have to decide all of these things. Okay, so let's see. First of all, we're going to change our thresholds to be something similar to, not exactly monotone, but we're only going to make these thresholds depend on the jobs which have come before job J. Right? So any job which is coming after job J is not going to affect the threshold for job J. So in some sense, we're setting job-dependent thresholds. And then we'll see how these affect the algorithm. And this is just going to be the maximum load over all jobs in all dimensions. Okay. And if this threshold drops below half, then we're actually going to try and reassign them in some sense. And otherwise, we're actually going to let it be. Okay? So this part is going to become clear in a little bit how we're using this. But let's just keep this let's just keep this on the back of our mind for now. Okay. So let's see what's going to happen before that, are there any questions till now? Cool, okay. So let's see what's going to happen if you try to insert job J here. So this M of J is the machine which was picked for job J. And this threshold, this is the same as before, except this AL is going to be job dependent threshold. Okay, so we're going to compare it to the actual load on machine M of J. So ACTL is going to be the actual load. And if this threshold is not exceeded, if you add this job, then you're just going to add job J to machine. Right? Okay, so this part is the same as what we've seen before, except the threshold is slightly different. And one thing to note here is that we're only going to pick one random machine for each job. So this bottom, whatever part that is, bottom right part, right? Okay, so this random machine is not going to change throughout this job's existence. And we're definitely going to use this crucially later. Okay, fine. So if this job does exceed the threshold, then we're again going to push it to the greedy set. And this is going to just take care of it in a one-dimensional way. Right? So just to know, this is not actually going to be assigned to the same machine. It could be any machine. We just dumping it into the greedy set and we don't care about it anymore. Okay. So if there are no questions, let's keep going. When we get a request to delete some job, if the job is in the greedy set already, we're okay because the one-dimensional algorithm already takes care of deletions for us. So we just get rid of it and we just do whatever reassignments it tells us to. So, and if it is in the random set, we'll have to do a little bit more work, right? So if we delete it, what may end up happening is, because this job is gone, for some job which is inserted after J, right, threshold may decrease. Right? Because we said job dependent thresholds, and anything before J is not affected, but something after J could be affected. Does that make sense? Okay. So we're just going to check if the threshold reduces by half for any job which is inserted after J. Okay. So this was the one thing that we changed in our algorithm. We're going to use this now. And if this threshold just, it's not changed beyond half, then we're actually not going to do anything. And how do we interpret this? It kind of means that job J was not a large job, right? Job J was not influencing the threshold too much, right? So if job J was very large, then the threshold would have reduced by a lot. And we definitely have to do more work to actually optimize this make span again. So since job J is not very influential, we can actually let it go and not do anything. Okay. So if the threshold does decrease by more than half, which means job J was this very large job, which influences threshold for J prime a lot, right? So then what are we going to do? We're just going to recalculate this threshold for this J prime and reassign it. Is that okay? Let's keep going. So this J prime, what's going to happen? It may actually move to greedy because we're reassigning it, right? So it may violate the threshold now. It could happen. We're just reassigning it as if it was inserted for the first time. Okay, so let's keep going. Yes, now job J prime has moved to greedy. So let's analyze the recourse for this. Okay, so when job, I just want to reiterate here, job J prime, if it was reassigned to random, it would be reassigned to the same machine because the choice of this random machine is fixed, right? It's not changed at all. And because of that, we're going to get low recourse, right? So when is a job reassigned? It could be shifted from random to greedy, right? But that happens only once, because once we shift the job to greedy, we don't care about it at all. We're just going to take care of it in the one-dimensional way. And one more thing it could happen, because is that inside greedy itself, some other job may be deleted and you may need reassignments, right? Okay, so even this is only going to be order of 1 just from this one-dimensional algorithm. Is that okay? Okay. So is it clear that this recourse is going to be order of 1 for any job? Okay. So now to analyze the competitive ratio, we're going to need something. So we still need to prove something similar that we did for the insertion only case, that any job is going to be sent to greedy with a very low probability. Right? Because if it wasn't, then if we're just going to dump a lot of jobs, we won't really get a good bound on the competitive ratio. Right? And we're able to prove a similar guarantee here that any job is going to go to greedy with probability at most 1 by d. And we're going to use this. Let's see how. Okay. So when is a job shifted to greedy? If the threshold is violated during the first insertion, then we're just going to move this job to the greedy set. Right? That's our algorithm. And that's going to happen at the beginning. Right? So what else could happen is some other job which came before you is deleted, right? And your threshold is affected, and then you might still go to greedy. Okay. So because of this, some job J prime which came before me is deleted, and so job J is being moved to greedy. Right? Okay. So we have to take care of both of this. Right? So first of all, let's just take care of this case first. Right? And then we'll use some sort of union bound and then take care of the previous. Okay, so I'm just going to set threshold to be some constant times this competitive ratio times the average load times the maximum load, which is what we've been doing till now. Right? So if I do this, then by just a simple application of Chernoff bound, I'm going to get that the probability that you're violating this this threshold when you're inserted for the first time is going to be something like this. Right? So let's forget that 1 by d raised to c for now. Let's just concentrate on this 1 by d raised to this threshold term. Right? So this is where we're crucially going to use that we're only going to reassign jobs when the threshold is reduced by half. Okay. So yeah, just this is true only because these choices of machines are independent, right? Okay. Fine. So as I said earlier, we're going to reassign jobs to greedy only if this threshold is violated by more than half, right? This threshold is changed by more than half. And because of this, whatever initial probability I end up with, right? Even if I union bound over all these possible choices, I'm always going to be at most 1 by d raised to c minus 1. Is this clear? Okay. So yeah, and now after this, you're just going to union bound over all the dimensions, and then you're done. Okay. Okay, so how much time do I have? 5 minutes. Okay. Fine. So now it becomes very easy to analyze the competitive ratio. Right? Let's just look at the random set of machines. And here we know that the load on any machine in some dimension k is going to be this actual load. Plus, let's just look at the last job which was inserted. And this job's load is going to be less than the maximum load after all. Right? Okay. So the previous load till job j was inserted along with the load of j. Right? And we know that this is going to be true because job j was not moved to greedy. Right? Because the condition was never violated. And finally, this is just by definition of threshold. Right? Okay. And on the greedy side, we know that only 1 by d fraction of these jobs are inserted because we proved it. And because of that, again, the maximum load is going to be at most a constant times this optimal value. Does that make sense? Okay. So this basically proves whatever we set out to prove, right? There is a very simple algorithm, which is just using this random and greedy idea. You try to insert things randomly. If it doesn't work out, then you just push it to the greedy set, right? And then you're getting a constant recourse with this optimal competitive ratio for the case with no recourse, right? Okay, I'll stop here for a bit. Sorry? Yes, okay. I'm sorry, I have to move a lot to get to it. Right, okay, yeah. So this is where, so we said inside greedy while rebalancing, this recourse is going to be constant, but this part, so I'm not actually doing any reassignment inside the random part, right? Okay. So I may actually reinsert the job into random, but it always goes to the same machine. So if it was going to a different machine, then we would have to use that in recourse as well. So we're not doing it. Yeah, we got through all this, and okay. So let me just conclude, right? So we saw that there is a simple algorithm which is randomized, which handles deletions in this multi-dimensional case with a comparative ratio of log d over log d with a constant recourse. Okay. And what are the questions can we ask here? We don't know if recourse actually helps to beat the lower bound in the insertion only setting, right? And we clearly saw from Varun's talk that in the single dimension case, recourse does help a lot, right? We actually get through all these lower bounds that we have because we have recourse, and then we even get some sort of trade-off with the amount of recourse that we have, right? And we don't know if any results like that in the multidimensional case. Okay. And it's not clear if we can prove any recourse dependent lower bounds here. So let's say if you have only constant recourse, what is the best comparative ratio you can get? We don't know of any results like that. And we also don't know how to extend this to adaptive adversaries with low recourse, right? So, or how we don't know if a deterministic algorithm exists either. Okay. And I think that's all I had for today.
Questions?
Recourse is done only on departure. Do you do whenever you add a job, you never do a recourse?
No, the recourse is done only when a job departs. Yes. Okay, so thank you for your attention.
So I guess that brings us to an end of the workshop. Thanks again to all the speakers. Thanks to all the local organizers, Meghna, Jailal. They worked really hard to, arrange for everything, room and everything. Thanks again.